Imagine standing in front of a mirror. You're 16 years old, and you ask yourself a question that will change the world forever. What would happen if I could run alongside a beam of light? That question haunted one boy, and it unlocked the secrets of the universe. Germany, 1895. A young man named Albert Einstein sat alone in his room in Munich. Outside, the city was buzzing with industry and ambition. But inside, Albert felt trapped. He hated school. He hated the rules. He hated being told what to think. His teachers said he would never amount to anything. One even told him straight to his face. Albert didn't argue. He just sat there and thought. When Albert was 5 years old, his father gave him something small. Compass. He held it in his hand. The needle moved, but nothing was touching it. Albert's heart raced. What's making it move? He turned the compass. The needle followed. Always north. Invisible forces. Something he couldn't see was controlling the needle. That moment, that tiny, quiet moment, lit a fire inside him. A fire that would never go out. At 16, Albert made a decision. He couldn't stay in Munich anymore. His father's business had failed. The family had moved to Italy. And Albert? He was left behind. Alone. In a boarding house. He was supposed to finish school. But he felt like he was dying inside. So one night he packed his bag. And he ran. He showed up at his parents' doorstep in Milan. Unannounced. His mother opened the door. She stared at him. Albert. What are you doing here? He didn't have an answer. He had no diploma. No plan. No future. He was a dropout. A failure. The next few years were brutal. Albert tried to get into university in Switzerland. He passed math and physics with flying colors. But he failed French, chemistry, and biology. Still, they let him in on one condition. Finish high school first. So he did. Then he went to the Polytechnic school in Zurich. He thought everything would change. But it didn't. He fell in love with a classmate, Maliva Merrick. His parents hated her. She's not one of us, his mother said. Albert didn't care. He loved her. They had a child together in secret. But he still couldn't find a job. He applied everywhere. Rejected. 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 One professor, Heinrich Weber, even sabotaged him. Einstein would later write, I would have found a job long ago if Weber had not played a dishonest game with me. He was broke, desperate, humiliated. He took jobs tutoring kids. He got fired from those too. Then, in 1902, his father got sick. Albert sat by his bed. Hermann looked at his son and said softly, It's okay, Albert. You can marry her. A few days later, Hermann died. He died thinking his son was a failure. Albert carried that pain for the rest of his life. A friend's father helped Albert get a job. A clerk. At the Swiss patent office in Bern. It wasn't glamorous. But it was steady. And for the first time in years, Albert had time to think. He'd sit at his desk, reviewing patent applications. Finish them quickly. Then pull out a piece of paper. And go back to that question. What happens if you run alongside light? He filled notebooks. He paced his apartment. Maliva would watch him, amused. You're going to wear a hole in the floor, she'd say. He barely heard her. He was somewhere else. Somewhere beyond space. Beyond time. Then it all came together. In one year, 1905, Albert Einstein published 4 papers. Each one revolutionary. One explained how light worked. Another proved that atoms were real. The third introduced the world to relativity. And the fourth, almost like an afterthought, he scribbled down an equation. Equals mc squared. Energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. It meant that tiny amounts of matter contained unimaginable energy. It meant the universe worked in a way no one had ever imagined. But when he published it, silence. No one cared. Albert went back to his desk at the patent office and waited. Then one man noticed, Max Planck, the founder of quantum theory. He read Einstein's work, and he realized, this changes everything. Slowly, others followed. Invitations started coming. Universities wanted him to lecture. Albert left the patent office. He became a professor, then a director. He traveled. He debated. He worked. But his marriage fell apart. He was never home. Always thinking. Always elsewhere. Mileva begged him to stay. He couldn't. In 1915, after 10 years of struggle, Einstein finished his masterpiece, the general theory of relativity. It said that gravity wasn't a force. It was the bending of space and time itself. Massive objects like the sun didn't pull on the Earth. They curved the fabric of reality. The Earth simply followed that curve. It was beautiful, elegant, radical. And in 1919, during a solar eclipse, scientists tested it. They measured how starlight bent around the sun. Einstein's theory was right. Suddenly, the world knew his name. The headline in the Times of London read, "Revolution in Science, Newton's Ideas Overthrown." Albert Einstein became the most famous scientist on Earth. He toured the world. Crowds followed him everywhere. In Hollywood, he stood next to Charlie Chaplin at a film premiere. Thousands of people screamed. Chaplin laughed and said, "They cheer for me because everyone understands me. They cheer for you because no one understands you." Einstein smiled. But inside he felt alone. Fame came with a price. In Germany, the Nazis rose to power. They called his work Jewish physics. They burned books, held rallies against him. A magazine published his photo with the words, "Not yet hanged." There was a price on his head. In 1932, Einstein left Germany forever. He moved to Princeton, New Jersey. He never went back. Then came personal tragedies. His son Edouard had a mental breakdown, institutionalized for life. His close friend Paul Ehrenfest took his own life. His wife Elsa died. And then, the bomb. In 1939, Einstein signed a letter to President Roosevelt. It urged him to build an atomic weapon before the Nazis did. He thought it was necessary. But when the bomb dropped on Japan in 1945, Einstein was horrified. He spent the rest of his life fighting for peace, trying to control what he had helped create. In his later years, Einstein became obsessed with one last idea, a unified theory, a single equation that would explain everything. Gravity, light, matter, energy, all of it. He worked on it alone. Most physicists had moved on to quantum mechanics. But Einstein wouldn't stop. He walked the streets of Princeton, lost in thought, talking to friends, scribbling equations, still chasing that beam of light. On April 18, 1955, Albert Einstein died. His unified theory was unfinished. But his legacy, it had already changed the universe. Einstein once said, "I am not an atheist. We are like a child in a huge library, filled with books in many languages. The child knows someone wrote them, but doesn't know how. He spent his whole life trying to read those books, to understand the mind of God. He didn't find all the answers, but he taught us something more important. Never stop asking questions. Even if the world tells you you're nobody, even if you fail again and again, because one question, asked by one curious mind, can bend the very fabric of reality."